Hello, good morning. Thank you very much for listening to our talk on the contributions of multimodal narratives for the construction of inclusive teaching identities. We are professors Laura Rayon, Ana María de las Heras, Elena Bañares, José Hernández Ortega, and Carlos Barroso, and we belong to the Complutense University of Madrid. To the TCC group, which studies technological development, sociocultural exclusion, and education. So let's start with the context of our proposal. The Complutense University, it is within the teaching innovation projects, two teaching innovation projects during the academic years 2020-21 and 2021 and 22. In the initial teacher training, this is particularly important, and in the subjects of didactics for the attention to diversity, didactics and curricular innovation and educational technology. It is important to highlight that this project is initiated in initial teacher training because students need to understand that educational institutions are immersed in an unequal and multicultural society. Only by this understanding, future teachers will be able to create a teaching identity committed to the principles of equity and social justice, committed to cater for all the difference in future learners. The importance that trainee teachers have in building a clear understanding of the needs of the community, the mechanisms of exclusion, and the situations of inequality suffered by certain groups is foremost not to reproduce exclusionary practices. To promote this knowledge in future teachers, we propose to provide trainee teachers with learning experiences placed in the correct socio-political and cultural context in order to understand the mentioned conditions and act upon them. Our objectives are to bring students closer to knowledge and work procedures in accordance with a conception of the professional role that is sensitive to diversity. This conception of the professional role is sensitive to human social needs, whose practical performance is guided by moral and ethical criteria. That means that the teacher is not a technician, it is not just a content deliverer, but she also has to look upon other aspects in their students. Our second objective is to help students to problematize the conceptualization of diversity and inequality in a relativistic or ethnocentric vision. For this second objective, we explore the production of multimodal texts in their training. The main aim of multimodal text is to observe reality around themselves and construct narratives to help understand educational inequalities linked to social class, gender, disability, and cultural minorities by taking pictures of the world around them. Thirdly, to present different formative strategies based on the construction of multimodal text by students, which highlight the resignification of the use of digital hybrids. This is what the students will have to present in their multimodal journals at the end. Talking about inclusive teaching identities, teacher identity is conditioned by the context we live in and interaction we experience in this context. It can be said that teacher identity is conditioned by multiple experiential and sociocultural factors. Therefore, it is important for trainee teachers to understand who they are, how they feel, and how they construct their lives by exploring reality and placing themselves in this reality. When teachers initiate their training, they have previous preconceptions, which are due to the education they have suffered. And they exclude identities in the same way they have been taught to exclude identities, but with a pluridimensional construct taking into account technology, social structure, and production modes. This could be solved because these identities can be reconstructed. These experiences take place before other concepts define them as teachers, as Torres and Santome mentioned. We take into account three dimensions: the social dimension, the intellectual dimension, and the discursive dimension. Through the processes of participation in the social dimension, the participation, the encounters with others, and the recognition. In the intellectual dimension, we have an attentive observation, an analysis and debate and discussion, and negotiation agreements. And in the end, the discursive dimension means in the textual relationships between image, language, and oral language. The contents that we aim to get at social and educational reality, beliefs, and an academic content, knowledge. These academic journals have a double formative function. Excuse me. On the one hand, an analysis of the educational experiences which emerge from the beliefs, ideals, and values of future teachers, and the articulation of procedures to identify, analyze, and reconstruct them in formative proposals. What knowledge, skill, and attitudes do students have in relation to the uses of technology? This is something that we explore, and we reassign meanings in relation to the use that students make of digital hybrids. Why multimodal? Because multimodality, which is using more than one mode in order to express themselves, uses language encodes with codified signs, and apart from that, the multimodality also uses images to gather human experience, to evoke moments and personal experiences. This context of the internal, which is internal and external to the author, and the interpretations that the receivers make of them, it is studied by Kress and Van Leeuwen in their bibliography. It also has a denotative meaning and a connotative and affective meaning. On the one hand, the denotative meaning is the description of the image, the elements of the photographic composition, and the rhetorical figures that we can find in an image and can explain more than words can explain. On the other hand, the connotative and affective meaning means text and function, the reconstruction and construction of reality, and the meanings underlying in an image, which is the cognitive and affective dimension. On the other hand, we have the ideology, the cultural patterns that transmit that image in order to analyze reality. The procedures used are photoelicitation and photographic narrative. This photographic narrative can be individual or in a group. As for photoelicitation in the classroom, what the students have to do is an attentive observation in respect to a concept or phenomenon that is photographed in order to explain and analyze and debate with the others. They have to do a reflection on a situation, talking about one's own experience in everyday contexts. And then they have to comprehend of abstract and complex context in order to find a solution. This creation progress of the narratives has three phases. The first phase deals with the thematic delimitation, which is the formative dimension of the procedure. On the second place, they have the development of the photo elicitation sessions, which shows and explains the photographs to the rest of the group. In this way, peers contribute with their perceptions and question the authors about their beliefs and, if necessary, about the inconsistencies detected in the discourse. This is the dialogic and reflective potential of the photograph. Lastly, there is the construction of group visual narratives, which incorporate new ideas and visions, contrast the different stories and put them in relation to each other, and then, finally, construct a visual narrative intersubjective vision, which is the intersubjective vision of reality. Now we are going to show you some of the learning strategies integrating multimodality. We have been talking about the multimodal learning journal, where the students show who they are as educators and what emotions they experience when approaching to subject knowledge. With knowledge, we mean readings and materials, classroom tasks, and hands-on classes. In the phase of reflection and analysis, there is a theory-practice connection with experience. Then we have the evaluation of the life experiences, the encounter difficulties, and the input from colleges. And finally, we have the conclusions. What I have learned as an educator or as a future educator, what beliefs have been modified, what have I felt, what emotions and feelings I have experienced, and what the implication of the subject for my education, my life, and society are. In the journals, we find how students construct knowledge through images, because an image is used to capture reality in relation to a concept. Sometimes concepts are difficult to explain, which is easier explained with an image. The constructions of narratives in which they use different images show more complex and problematic realities rather than in written text, just using written text. In this slide, you have an example of one of the multimodal journals, which is a critique of the homogenization of the process at school nowadays, which is kind of a productive chain in a factory. This is how these students see education. This image shows inequality caused by the digital divide, in which the illiterate adult suffers a systematic exclusion nowadays, and he or she is unable to participate in society and suffer strong labor limitations. And this affects the rest of the areas of their lives, affecting even their family relationships. For example, the inability to support their children at school, and this is common for this group to abandon their studies prematurely. In this other image, we have the importance of critical thinking in teachers from the school transformation. They need to question school tradition that excludes and does not respect human differences, as it is shown in the image. This is another narrative with the three curricular approaches. In the first one, we find a technical curriculum which is uncomfortable and violent with diversity, as we can see in the chart. In the second one, shows a practical one which is more creative and more tolerant with human differences. And finally, we have the critical one which is reflective and empowers minorities. As for collective photographic narratives, we have more examples. The globalization, where we see culture, which is influenced by politics and culture and technology, sorry, as you can see in all the images around. Then we have these transigraphies. The first one favors the observation of reality and highlights teamwork and group cohesion. And then we have multimodal productions in which students reflect on their beliefs in relation to a reality, a problem, etc. This cycle, which is a transit, walking to go to a perception and register, then goes to for an analysis and interpretation of the reality. Then this following stage is a collective debate using the technique of or methodology of cooperative learning for representation and the communication. This other shows a loop with the center of a capital, and around the capital revolves around everything shown in the images. In this other example, the student decided to use codes with the reality around him or her, showing betting houses, old age, racism, child poverty, garbage, and a dirty road, which can be read with a mobile. This is about barriers in the neighborhood to the left, which cause inequality, barriers which provoke exclusion within the neighborhood and don't contemplate diversity. These are some of the references we have used for this talk, and in here you have the book published by the research team. This book, even the cover is in Spanish. This book is going to be published in English, open access, and in 2023, June 2023, under this title. And as I said, it is open access for you to get deeper understanding of the topic. Thank you very much for your attention. You have our contact email here in case you need some more details about our topic. Thanks very much.